Hey, hey, welcome back to the Palooka Watch channel. I'm Mike. Today we're going to talk about watch straps. It's a funny thing to talk about. It's something I've been avoiding. I feel kind of silly talking about it in a way because, I feel like I'm just trying to find something to talk about, but that's not the case. I recently stumbled upon a way for me personally, to wear bracelets. We got a whole bunch of watches here. So we're going to take a look at, I'm not going to show you all these watches. I'm just going to talk about some of the different styles of straps that are out there that I've had experience with and explain this thing that I stumbled upon about how I personally like to wear my watch and why. And I think it's going to be an interesting subject. Don't go anywhere. It's going to get pretty good here. The reason I decided to do this particular video was I recently made a leather watch strap for this watch. I'm going to do a video on this watch here pretty soon. This is what they call the Seiko Land Monster. And it comes on, they came on bracelets. I haven't had one on a bracelet yet. I've got another one of these that's at the shop right now. And they both came on rubber and or silicone straps. This one came with a real nice silicone strap. It was pretty comfortable, but the thing I don't like about silicone or rubber is that it just, when you're working hard, just the sweat builds up, and I just don't like it. I like the way it feels on my wrist. Although, if I had a choice between the silicone and the hard rubber, I'll show this to you close up in a bit, I would always choose the silicone over that. I put this bison hide band, and I'll show you guys some tighter shots of this in the video soon. I wore this over to the watch shop, and I'm talking about Majestic WJ. That stands for watch, Majestic Watches and Jewelry, and that's Mike is the father, and Vartan is the son. It's a family routine over there, and I hang out in there a lot. And he was really cool. They love my work. I started going in there when I was first making these. This is what I call the Gladiator watch cuff, which is a big heavy duty thing for a big heavy duty watch. And I nailed this. Then I started making watch cuffs that were more, a little more subdued, but super cool, very comfortable. I just prefer leather on my wrist. It's one I made for a Panerai. Looks real cool on. I love it. I wear all these watches. I just rotate them around. I even put my Seiko Tortoise on one. And this looks so good when it's on. And again, this is all bison hide here and lined with calf skin, and they're very comfortable. And they loved it. They were very impressed with it. And when I wore this watch in the other day, Mike says to me, he says, what's cool about that is that when you glance at it, it still just looks like a rubber strap. I hadn't thought about that. I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because I prefer leather on my wrist. I mean, you can just see how this will just conform. This is very thick. This is thicker than the rubber straps that they made, or thicker than the silicone straps. It's a little substantial there. And I'm going to get into something he said to me and show this close up in a moment. I made it for this watch. And then I went ahead and made one for my, this is a 25-year-old watch here. This is an SKX from the year 2000, the SKX 173. And made a 22 millimeter of a little stiffer piece of bison hide. And again, the cool thing is, at a glance, it doesn't look so different on your wrist, I suppose, from, I know I have one here. The rubber straps that come with these watches. I never liked the look of this personally, by the way. I just think it's hideous to look at. Just never liked that. We're going to show this close up in a moment. Here's the same exact watch with the band that would have came on it at the time. And, it's just, I just don't like it. I never liked it. And this is the hard rubber one. And these eventually kind of get brittle and start cracking and have all kinds of issues. And I'm going to like I said, we're going to get to this close up here in a minute. We're going to talk about all this stuff. But the other big one for me was this particular watch I'm wearing right now, which is the Captain Willard. Again, I'll show this to you close up, but it comes with, it came on a pretty nice Seiko silicone strap. When this watch came to me, keep turning my back on you, it came on this bracelet. It's an aftermarket, I forget the company name. It's a great bracelet, and I put it on this WMC that I really like to wear. This has been an everyday watch for months. And it looks okay on this watch. Although, because it's the Willard and it has the cushion case, it seemed like it was overpowering the watch a little bit. It works perfect on this Submariner style case. Works perfect. And the watch comes with, like I was saying, this band here, which really, this is not as silicone-y. It is silicone, but it's got it's harder than the other softer silicone. But what they did here is a 20 millimeter width here, but then they taper it down to 19 to make it look more like the watch straps that came on the watches back in the 1960s, because this is a reissue of the 6105 Willard. And again, I don't like the rubber or the silicone on my wrist. And after I made this band here for this watch, I thought, well, why don't I make one for my Willard? And oh my God, now I can wear the Willard. And I'm so excited about that. It's just, man, it just feels so good. And the neat thing is if you go to try to buy just a leather strap, a two-piece leather strap online, they're pretty dainty. I haven't seen a lot of like robust, well-made watch straps. But when you make it yourself, you can do that. I even had a Seiko buckle here that I found. And I made a leather keeper for it, but you can see how thick this is. Again, we're going to show this close up here in a minute. So this is a nice robust leather strap for this watch, and boy is it nice. So let's go ahead, move the camera over here, get some close-ups, and I'm going to talk about different types of watch bands. I'll show you a Zulu compared to a NATO style, compared to the modern 5-buckle NATOs, and an elastic strap here, single pass leather. I've got an old vintage watch cuff here from the maybe from the late 1960s, and just kind of briefly go over watch straps. And then I want to talk to you guys about wearing the watch properly on your wrist, because I find I like to clock the watch more inboard on my wrist. And there's a couple tricks to do that I'm going to show you with your bracelets, and I'm going to show you with the bands I'm personally making. All right, so don't go anywhere. It's going to get way more interesting here, I promise. Okay, so I don't know how many of these watches we're actually going to see, but real quick, I just wanted to show you guys this one, because this was the watch. I've been wanting this watch for a while, and again, this is the band I made. And the thing I wanted to point out is I like to clock my watch more to the inboard part of my wrist. In order to do that, if you're making your own band, the buckle part of the strap, right, that fastens up here at the 12 o'clock has to be longer. And that was something that Mike pointed out to me over there at Majestic. Now, let me grab a little cloth here, wipe this watch off so it looks a little bit better on screen for you. Now, I kind of figured that out because initially what had happened was I went over there weeks ago and I was wearing a watch, and I explained how, and you guys can see it here. If I hold this up, you can see how the buckle is here. You see how it's shorter on this side? It's longer on this side. I do that on purpose because if you do that with your bracelet, it registers the watch more inboard on your wrist. Now, what Mike was explaining to me is that the buckle, it doesn't matter if it's a strap or if it's a bracelet, the buckle wants to migrate towards the outboard part of the underside of your wrist. Okay, which this is your radius bone is here. So it wants to migrate more in this direction, which means your watch is going to start rotating off your wrist to the outboard side. And so that's why you see you look at your watch, you're always grabbing it and moving it to the inside of your wrist to see it better. So you want to be able to glance down and see the time without having to twist your arm this far, which is why I keep seeing people grab their watch and moving it this way. And I've seen videos on guys sizing their bracelets where they're trying to make the buckle appear to be in the center, and that is wrong if you want to wear the watch correctly. So I've got one here. I don't think I've adjusted this one yet. This is a Seiko Samurai, and this is Mark from Long Island Watch. This is one of his bracelets. Now, I haven't adjusted this one yet, and you can see that even just doing this already, the buckle wants to migrate towards the radius bone, which rotates the watch too far outboard. So when I go to I've got to twist my arm more for me to see this. So I got to constantly grab this and move it on my wrist. That's the big point I wanted to make. So I will adjust this pretty shortly. I'll probably do this right after I'm done with this video. Same thing with, let's see, I got another one here, I think. Yeah, now this here is a 1990. This is actually a precursor. This is a 7002 movement. It's actually a really neat dial because it has, I might be able to zoom in on that for you. It has a lot of cool information here. Come on now. Getting this to focus sometimes is a real... Yeah, I can't do it. But it says, basically it's a Singapore... There we go. 7002, movement Singapore, dial Japan. I wanted this watch because of this particular dial. This has been serviced, and it's an awesome watch. But it's the same issue here. It's equal. And again, I'm going to show this to you here, but you already saw it. But this wants to, if you wear it, as you wear it, just moving it around on your wrist, the buckle wants to shift in that direction, which throws the watch to the outboard part of your wrist. And again, you end up grabbing it and moving it. So if you shorten the links on the inboard part, right, this is from the 6 o'clock side, your watch will wear better. The other thing that you'll notice with me when I'm wearing my watches is I am not a fan of letting the watch fall down upon... Where's the watch I wanted to put on? Here we go. Letting the watch... You can see here just looking at this. You see how much longer this strap is? Now, a lot of the times when you're buying a watch, like a dive watch, it'll come with an extra long section, but it's always this side. It's not this side. And this is the part, in my opinion, that should be made longer. Because, again, it clocks the watch more appropriately on your wrist. The other thing is, by the way, you'll notice, if you make your own watch band, you just need one hole or two. So you'll also notice, I'll talk about the construction of the band, I suppose. I'll talk about that in a moment. So again, so I can clock this back on my wrist a little bit more. To be honest with you, on this particular band, I'm always honest with you, I probably didn't make that long enough. I think I'm going to have to make another version of this band for myself personally. But it's just so much more comfortable. And again, I found that Seiko buckle, so I'm pretty stoked about that. I'll talk to you about this. This is actually the hide here, and I probably made this a little fat. It rubs a little bit on the insides of this buckle here. So I'll go ahead and trim this down a hair and then redress the edges, make it nice. Nobody will ever see that. This is a water buffalo, like an Indonesian water buffalo hide. And again, I missed the stitching there, but it doesn't matter because it's stitched right up to the edge. And this is my own personal band. I'd prefer if I had it like that on both sides. But you can see how I line the backside, and even the keeper, I definitely overstitch that. And I also learned that when I skive down the leather to wrap around, right, where this buckle's going to go in, as well as where the spring bar goes in, I skive this down so that it's like this far back. Let's see where my thumbnail is here. So I know I'm going to get plenty of stitching in it. So that's never going to pull out of there. And obviously, yeah, the same thing on this side. Like it folds back all the way to about here. And then, of course, I put the lining on it and stitch that. So I thought you guys would appreciate that. This is a piece of buffalo, American bison hide, rather. The texture on this is phenomenal. I'm just very, very stoked with that. Looks great. And this is a buckle set that came off of a silicone Seiko strap. Actually, no, that's wrong. It was on a leather one, and the leather was beat, and the leather was so short. It was an original Seiko band that actually came on this watch, and the band was damaged. That's the reason I got this watch so cheap, I think. And the leather band on it was so short I could barely get it around my wrist. My wrist typically measures out at 7 5/8, but in warmer months it's about 7 3/4. It's a little chilly today, so it's on the smaller side. And you'll see here, I do have 2 holes in this one. But I don't know why the phone keeps changing focus depending on where I place this so I apologize for the way it's changing focus there. But back to the different types of bands here. I thought you guys would just get a kick out of it. This is from about the 1960s. I believe this is probably like an early 70s watch. This is the same one that Elvis was wearing in the 68 comeback special. I've bought this with this Timex, which is an automatic, and it works. You'll see that second hand moving. I picked this up for $26. It was a no-brainer. It's a bitch to get on, because getting 3 of these things to buckle at the same time, it takes about, takes 5 minutes, 6 minutes or so just to get this thing strapped to your wrist. I also don't like that it's, nickel hardware or chrome hardware with a gold watch, gold colored watch here. So I'd like to change that out at some point. Again, this was one of the first, well, this is the first one. This is the first Gladiator watch cuff I ever made, where it's double-sided with super thick bison hide here. And I'm proud of that. And then I wanted to make one that was more subdued. So this one here has horse hide on the bund, and the rest of this is bison hide. And again, I made my own leather keeper. And this is the Seiko 55 fathoms. I now have 3 of these. Matter of fact, one of those is right here on a bracelet. By the way, if you want to find a deal on this watch, somebody contacted me about this. Because if you type in, it's the SNZ, I forget what the exact numbers are on this watch, but if you were to type that into eBay and look for it, it's really expensive. I mean, there's people asking $500-600 for this watch. It's insane. But if you were to type in Seiko 5 and 7S36, I believe that's the movement on here. You might be able to see that. Yes, 7S36. If you do that and you just start looking at Seiko watches, these will pop up, and oftentimes you can find these for around the $100 mark, because the people selling them don't know that this is a desirable watch, which is a way to get a deal. I'm a Seiko hunter. The other thing I do is I size my watches so they fit above the bone on my wrist. I don't like when the watch falls down and starts hitting my wrist. Now, Seiko, of course, is famous for the asymmetrical case, all right, with the 4 o'clock crown. So there are watches typically, all right, like the SKX style here, it's more comfortable to wear if it does slide down on your wrist, because then that crown at 3 o'clock isn't digging into your wrist as much. However, I just don't like any watch falling down onto my wrist. I like my watches to lock in above the bone. With a bracelet, it's a little bit tougher. With a leather strap, you can dial it in a lot better. This is this is the watch I wear to work, because this watch is it's already beat up. There's some pretty good scratches on the crystal here. There we go. You guys can see that. I didn't do a great job on the lighting today. That's why you can see right there. I'll show you. You see the light shining in the middle there. We'll try to avoid that. But you guys can see here the scratches on that crystal. They came to me that way, so this watch was less than $100. This is actually one of my favorite Seiko 5s because it's gigantic. And you can see the size of the dial, how much more legible it is compared to many of these other watches. This is an MWC. This is a 5-buckle Zulu strap. I wanted to talk about straps here. Let's get you guys to that real quick. So this is what would be, this is a single pass, what you would call a Zulu here. It's a single pass Zulu. And then something like this is more of the NATO style, where it's got the safety strap on the underside and one buckle here. And really this buckle here and this second pass is just to keep the watch from sliding off a single pass strap. That's all that's for. But the idea of a pass-through that routes through the watch in this manner is so that if one of your spring bars breaks, you don't lose the watch completely. This is a perpetual calendar, titanium, high beat quartz. This is a desirable and collectible watch. I don't think they made a whole lot of these. I believe this is from the 90s, late 90s possibly. It's pretty cool because it has the look of, well, you can see it right here. I happen to have a Samurai here. And you can see the similarities as far as the way the bezel is. But that bezel does not turn. It actually has crown guards. It has a screw-in crown, which is really cool. And it's protected up here like a Monster is. So I really like what they did with this particular style. It's just something I stumbled upon, and it was a good deal. And I thought it was kind of rare. All of the watches I'm buying are great deals, and I think that they're cool to own, and in some cases somewhat rare. Like here's the Seiko Atlas. Some people call this the Land Shark. It's a Seiko 5, but this one's 200-meter water resistance and has a locking screw-down crown. However, it's a 7S36 movement, so it doesn't have hacking or winding. It has an internal rotating compass bezel, which is a bit of a gimmick. But that goes all the way back to the 1960s. This is a 1997 reissue of a 1967 watch. And this watch also has an internal rotating compass bezel, which I think is really cool. And I love this bracelet. Now, my pet peeve with this particular one, and I love it, is that there's only one pin I can pull on this one. And there's not enough room here for me. It's very, well, I guess there is one that's removable there. Maybe I can still do it. This link doesn't have a removable pin. So I guess I'd have to figure this out. Because I'd like to shorten this side one more link. I did a whole video on this, I believe, this watch, and it's just very comfortable to wear, and I'm super stoked with that. So the other difference with bands I wanted to point out here is a nice silicone. I don't think I can show this to you on screen. Boy, that focus has changed so much. It's got to be very distracting to watch. I apologize. 2 Seiko silicone bands, but I can tell you that there's a major difference in these. This one is way more flexible, and this one just isn't. And this one is stiffer, this one is softer, and they're both from the same company, so I don't understand what's going on there, but whatever. Now, a patron of the channel, Jim, sent me this elastic band, and I've seen people say great things about these, but I got to tell you, I don't like it. I had it on my wrist, and it just will not stay snug on my wrist. It continually loosens up throughout the day, and I find myself having to readjust it. So this is not something I'm personally a fan of. Thanks, though, Jim. At least I know now. So I guess that's about it. I mean, when I show you stuff like this is a Pagani design, not a super high-end company, but this particular watch has great reviews. It has a visible power reserve, which is clearly not correct right now because it shows there's still power, but it ain't running. It has a locking. It's supposed to be a 200-meter diver. Well, it's not a dive watch, but it says 200-meter water resistance. And if I was to turn this, you'll see the hand moving here, which is giving it power. And then you'll see the seconds hand moving over here. This is a beautiful watch, and I truly believe that this style strap I put it on with the Bund is perfect. I think that that's a great way to display this watch on the wrist. Very happy with the way that that turned out. And, you know, going back to Seiko, this is a little silly, I have to admit, putting this particular watch on the Bund. The reason is this is a cushion style case, right? This is very similar to the, where is it again? The Seiko Willard, Captain Willard, right, with the 4 o'clock crown. Very similar. And, you know, the whole idea with the Seikos, with these Captain Willards, with this cushion style case, which is very comfortable on the wrist. So putting leather under this particular style case, you know, it's a little silly in a way. I admit that. And on this watch in particular, I did it in this style where it can slip out because on the back side, there's the land-to-air communications. So you can put these symbols on the ground to communicate with aircraft flying over that might be looking for you if you are lost. So I might make another band for this in brown without the whole, you know, watch cuff going underneath it. But I like the way that it looks on. It's fun to wear. There's something about this much leather on your wrist. I'll go ahead and put it on for you. It just feels good. It's like this leather cuff on your wrist. I don't know what that's about. It's like this weird security blanket sort of feeling. And it's funny because if you look at warriors from thousands of years ago, oftentimes they wore real thick leather cuffs on their wrists to protect them because, you know, everybody's fighting with blades back in the day. And I wonder if you start getting into the whole discussion of reincarnation and whatnot, like maybe that's a thing, you know, maybe we were here before and this is it just feels comforting to have that leather on your wrist like that. I personally love it. I don't wear this enough lately. It's hard when you have this many watches. I mean, when you're a collector, you're a collector. That's just how it is. But you want to wear these all the time. Another little bit of watch knowledge, which I was unaware of, is that Seiko figure out a way with their automatic watches to make these without lubricant. That's why you can pick up a watch, a Seiko that's decades old, like, for instance, where is it now? It's right here. This is from 1990. And you pick this thing up and you shake it and it runs. And that's the thing. So the higher end watches like Rolexes and such, Breitlings, whatever, they need to be lubricated. And if you don't wear the watch, the lubrication dries out. And then you have to have the watch serviced again. So they can clean that out. I'm putting this on extra snug. I'm just putting in the tight hole just for the heck of it here. This is turns out I had made these two parts for this 22 millimeter band. They were sitting in a drawer here. They weren't stitched yet. So I stitched them together last night before, I can't remember now. It's a little thick to get in this metal keeper. The buckle and the metal keeper were given to me by Mike. Oh my God, I've got so many buckles. It's crazy. But you can see how this locks onto the wrist above the bone now and it won't move. It's pretty cool. It's got my name on the buckle. And, you know, this hole here, it's probably a little bit more comfortable to wear on. But again, it's, you know, fully lined. And you can see the thickness. You know what? Let's compare that. Here is here's the strap that it would have came on, or something similar. And you can see the leather is even thicker than that plastic. And this hard rubber stuff here will eventually dry out and crack, as we've discussed. I just think that this is a better option. I just don't know that you can buy this. You know, you have to basically make it yourself like I do. It's a pretty cool look, man. Pretty neat. I have to point out, because I can't help myself, that on this, I'm on the fence with this water buffalo hide from Indonesia, because when you go to put your stitching lines, you're basically taking a pair of calipers, right? Like right here. And you figure out the width that you want to use on this. By the way, I will tell you that what you want to do is you want to figure out your width of your strap, and then you want to lay your pricking iron on, and you want to make it so it's even on both sides so that you can get what appears to be a nice straight line of stitching where those two end holes line up with the two side lines. And it's the thing that I had to learn. But when you're laying this out, you're going to do something like this on the leather. Okay. And that indentation there is a guideline now for your pricking iron. So you can get a nice straight line, nice row. And by the way, having this set up here with the work surface is much, you know what, I'll just pull this down real quick. So this work surface now has been so nice. Let's back you out a bit here. To work on, and I can take my press now and slide it over here and work on it. No hammering anymore. It's really efficient. I'm very, very pleased with this setup. The mic is falling. I have it just kind of wedged in the... I'm so pro. So anyhow, that's it. I just wanted to kind of point that out because when I'm doing this, the stitching lines on this sometimes move on me because I can't see the line. This buffalo hide, I've mentioned it before. This is a water buffalo hide again from Indonesia, and you can't really scratch it. You put a line on it and it just disappears instantly. This is what leather jackets should be made out of because it wouldn't show the wear so much. It's amazingly comfortable. I mean, one of the things that you have to look at with this, I'm going to have to, like I said, I'm going to have to thin this band up just a hair. It just catches a bit here. Again, one hole, slide the keeper over. But this should tell you how comfortable. You just look how this just will naturally conform to your wrist. You can just see how comfortable this just, it's thick enough to be nice and robust and feeling solid, manly and tough, but it's very pliable. And it's just, I can't get over how comfortable these bands are. This is my favorite. And this worked out great. It actually works with the Seiko metal keeper. But again, you just see how this leather, see how comfortable that is? Oh man, it smells good. So I'm very, very, very pleased with this. Anyhow, I'm going to stop talking. This video is long enough. I just wanted to point out that this is an option for you. Okay, you guys can get yourself a Seiko and make your own leather band. And in my opinion, okay, before I go, a lot of you are screaming right now. I hope you stayed long enough on this video because you're saying, why are you putting a dive watch on a leather band? Well, because I'm not going to dive with this, man. I'm not diving with any of these watches. If I'm going to go in the water, which I will do when I'm surfing or snorkeling or something like that, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring this band with me. Like, for instance, I was just talking to a couple pals of mine about going surfing down in El Salvador again. And we're probably not going to go till next fall. But when I do, I'm going to bring a watch. Maybe I'll bring one that'll be on a NATO, like this one, right? NATO style, 5 buckle. What I call the 21st century NATO with the 5 buckles because it locks on there. And this is what I would wear when I'm surfing because I'm not going to lose this watch, right? This is my Magnum PI watch. This is the Momentum Seaquartz 30 here. It's a copy of the, I forget the name of it now. It's basically the same watch. And even I wouldn't trust this on a 2-piece if I was surfing. I would put this on a single piece strap or pass through rather, some sort of NATO style if I was going to surf with this. I might trust this. I don't know. But I would feel safer if I'm surfing, if I'm in the water on a strap like this. Because again, if one spring bar breaks, I know I'm not going to lose the watch. So for water sports, heavy duty stuff, this is probably a better option. At any rate, this is just pretty. This is just a great looking watch. This is I really like the look of this on the wrist. But I find myself doing this a lot with this watch because the buckle side, you see where it is now. We already talked about this. This wants to migrate to the radius bone as you wear it. And look where the watch ends up. It ends up outboard on the wrist. So I've got to grab this to look at it to get it back and where I can see it. Fortunately, the leather overpowers the buckle on this watch. So I can keep it in this spot as I'm wearing it. So just to reiterate, if you want to have a leather band that will clock your watch inboard on your wrist, you want the strap that mounts at 12 o'clock with the buckle to be longer than average. See how that looks here. And then on your bracelets, you want to do it where this side is short. You can see how that's shorter. You see how there's an angle to that? Maybe that doesn't demonstrate it as well. But this one here, you see how there's a tilt to the clasp? The links are shorter at 6 o'clock. That's going to clock your watch inboard on your wrist. So when you go to glance down at the time, it's quicker. You don't have to grab the watch and twist it down. It's just annoying. I see people wearing that. Listen, it's personal preference. Everybody's different. A lot of people would be very uncomfortable wearing a watch the way I wear it. I wear mine a little on the snug side because I don't want it moving around on my wrist. So I want this to be clocked right here, and I want it above the bone. That's me personally. There's a lot of people, and I see them all the time, where they wear their watches super loose to the point where the watch is constantly spinning around. You can grab the watch and turn it around and have it on the underside of your wrist if you wanted to. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's perfectly fine if it doesn't bother you to be adjusting the watch on your wrist all the time. But this right here is what I like. So if you're like me and you've been fighting with your watch on your wrist, now you know the two little tricks. You can go ahead and adjust your watches. It's very easy to do. You could do it yourself. It's no big deal. Get yourself some watch tools. This is a Bergeron. All right, so it's got the forked end on one side. It's got the pin on the other. And you just go ahead and go underneath here, and this one might be screws. So this watch actually has screws. This is the Islander watch band. So this came with a screwdriver for me to use. But the rest of these Seikos, they're all push pins. The only one I don't have here that's pin and collar is the Seiko Turtle, which I own. And I'll tell you what, the pins and collars, they're a pain in the ass. That's just my opinion. You are better off putting an aftermarket bracelet on. Maybe one that has screws to adjust the links, or the push pins, either or. But the pin and collar setup, it's too much. It's just too complicated, and it's not worth the aggravation. Once again, that's it. Have a great day. Be kind to one another, and I'll catch you all in the next one.